Hello everyone, and welcome to the closing of the exhibition A Well-Kept Treasure, Woman and the Mysticism, presented by the Sanctuaire Notre-Dame-du-Cap in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, in collaboration with the Museum of World Culture in Nicolet, Musée des Cultures du Monde at Nicolet. My name is Dominique Mascotte. I am the Education, Cultural Action, and Communication Manager at the Musée des Cultures du Monde. In the context of the closing of the exhibition at the sanctuary, the curator, Marie-Hélène Naud, will give a conference on mystical women from different culture and era. This conference has been given in French at the opening of the exhibition in January 2022. Members of the English-speaking community have expressed interest in having access to the exhibition in their own language. In response to this interest, we are pleased to present this conference. Before I begin the conference, I would like to introduce our museum for those who are not familiar with our organization. The Musée des Cultures du Monde, or World Culture Museum, is a research and mediation institution managed by an autonomous board of directors. It is dedicated to the conservation, study, and dissemination of the tangible and intangible heritage of Quebec social group and community, both past and present. Its mandate to share the culture of various social group and community of Quebec, past or present, through the foundation of their tradition, belief, and issue in order to promote better understanding and develop greater tolerance for difference. The exhibition that we'll present today is in line with this mandate. Marie-Hélène Naud will briefly present a definition of mysticism, as well as the various study has been devoted to it. She will outline the theme structure of the exhibition and the 15 mystical women who are featured in it. She will also put forward a common point that can be found in the biography of the different women. The conference will conclude with a question and answer period, during which you can learn more about the mystical woman in the exhibition. So I invite you to think about your question throughout the conference and write them in the chat section of the Zoom, which is located at the bottom right of your screen. The curator of the exhibition, Marie-Hélène Naud, holds a master's degree in art history from the Université de Montréal and a graduate certificate in advanced education pedagogy from the Université du Québec à Montréal. Her master thesis was published in 2014 by the Édition Gide. She has written articles published in History Journal and given lectures on Quebec sacred art. She has studied the writing of mystics from different cultures for more than 15 years. This exhibition is her third curatorial project. Hi, Marie-Hélène.
Hello, Dominique. Thank you so much for this introduction, and thank you everyone for being here. It's really a pleasure to offer this conference in English today. As Dominique has mentioned, we have offered this first time conference at the opening of the exhibit, and now the exhibition has been presented at the sanctuary. So it's a Sanctuaire Notre-Dame-du-Cap in Trois-Rivières, and it just ended. So I would like to thank both Musée des Cultures du Monde and also Sanctuaire Notre-Dame-du-Cap for offering us today this possibility of a reunion. I would like to say first, I visited the Musée des Cultures du Monde in 2015 after my master, and I was overwhelmed by the beauty of the museum and the fact that they were putting all the different cultures and religions together for better understanding of the other. And I found that it was a beautiful project. And it's one thing that I always wanted to share in my life, to have this kind of project where people can understand better each other and understand that we are all aiming towards a similar goal, which is peace and love, ultimately. So I'd like to share with you the presentation so that we may begin. So here I will present you the exhibition catalog that has been published by the Édition Gide. So I have it in my hand. It's not too thick, but it's for me very precious. A lot of information that I have put in this catalog and effort. So there is an English version and French version as well. And it includes a presentation of the exhibition called A Well-Kept Treasure, Women and Mysticism. It also includes different quotations from the text of the 15 mystical women chosen in the exhibition. In the exhibition, there is actually a quote and a photo, or a representation of an artwork who is showing the actually the mystical woman. I thought it was a better way to feel really this, who is this woman and what is she saying? So what she looked like, and what does it feel like when she writes about her own experience. So with the quotations, I also wanted to include biographies of the women, because you can see a lot of points in common in their journey. So that was one thing that was really important to me. And then I also included a description of the work that represents them. So the iconography, if I take, for example, this beautiful woman that is Marie Magdalene here, she has, for instance, a perfume here that is one of her attributes, and also a skull that is a memento mori. So this is, for example, reminding us of the imminent death. So you don't have the possibility to dream so much in front of a skull. So this is one of the illustrations that is part of the exhibition as well. And then there is also some more quotations in the exhibition catalog, because I like to give always more information than less, as you will find in this conference. So it would be a good idea to start with what is mysticism. So for giving a simple definition of something that is not so easy to acknowledge at first place, mysticism is a state of union of the soul with the divine. So just to give few examples of what kind of experience a person could have on a daily life, on their everyday life, with mysticism, a pre-mystic experience per se, is when we are a child and we don't have many preoccupations in our mind, not many thoughts. We can have, for example, the idea of climbing in a tree and looking at the sky and contemplating the sky. And sometimes what happened, I know it happened to me as a child, is you would have the impression that the sky is englobing you, that you become kind of swallowed by it. And you become no more aware of the difference between your physical body and the sky. So it gives an impression of fear, because it's the immensity of this blue space, but also a sense of wonder. You're really struck by it, and you're like, oh. And so there's no more thoughts in your mind, and you're just in awe of what is happening, and it gives a lasting memory of this experience. So this is an example. Then there's another example that you could be dining with your friend at a table. You are exchanging beautiful, fun jokes together. You're having a good laugh, a good moment, and you are forgetting yourself, and you're making one with your friend. You're becoming one with them. And at that moment, you just feel peaceful and just so happy, and you don't have any preoccupation, no thoughts again in the mind are there. So this is another example. And then one example that happened to me recently, I went to an amazing concert where 3 singers, Quebec singers were singing. And through one of the performance that was so felt, so intense. I was really listening to every note of the music, and I was really merging into this song. And so I forgot about everything else, all about the people surrounding me, about the fact that I was in the theater, and I was just so focused on the singer. I was one with the melody and with the moment. And often you can feel goosebumps in that moment. You can feel that there's a vibration there. You can feel a lot of things. So this is another example of a pre-mystic experience. And then you will tell me, well, what's the difference between a mystical woman and a person who is not a mystic, you know? So the difference, there's a big one. It's the fact that the mystical woman, they will really try to have this experience being repeated and repeated again through a discipline most of the time. It could be prayer, it could be meditation. So they will try to put themselves into that space over and over again so that it becomes spontaneous and becomes a bridge to every moment of their life. So that's why a mystical woman is, is considered mystical. Now, what characterizes this state more specifically is all these examples I've given up here. They're all with a relaxed body. There's no tension there. You know, you're just really good. You're well in your body. Then the calm thoughts. There's just the thoughts are just gone. They're just like slip the line. No more there. So this is the most important part of it all. To remember something today, it's calm thoughts. That's the key. Then the peace and the well-being are like the little children, as we said, the wonder. So this is one thing also that's often coming in the descriptions of these states. And then feeling of unity and fusion with the surrounding or the environment around us is also one thing that's coming again and again in the description. So next one. There are some examples of literature very interesting into this about mysticism. So first, we can have Michel Hulin, La mystique sauvage aux antipodes de l'esprit. It was published in 1993, and if I translate very simply the title, it would be Wild Mysticism. So Michel Hulin is a French philosopher, and he has done in his introduction a good remark about the fact that mysticism is considered by psychologists as being, a mental illness, a problem. So it's really reductive in a way. In 1993, when he wrote his book, he was thinking it's a bit reductive, putting mysticism as a health disease. But you won't go so far as to understand all these ecstasies that are described by all the mystics, where they come from, what's the point in that. And he said there are other writers who are not in the psychology or psychoanalysis, and they will talk about in their own religions, there are mystics, and they will put them forward. So this is also a good way. But the thing is, when you put one religion only, it will be harder to put bridges between the mystics and the different religions, and to explain also those who are athei and don't believe in God whatsoever, how do they get those experiences also? So he was asking that question. And of course, it's true that it's not always so easy to put bridges between the religions, but it's certainly not impossible. They're just different conceptual, maybe restrictions, but you can really find common points in between the different mystics. So what he did, Michel Hulin, he thought, let's study the pre-mystic experience I just described to you earlier that everybody can have access to. And let's study those from the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. And those that are in America and in Europe, and that are not, non-believers, people who don't believe in God. So let's take their interpretation, their testimonies that they have written, and see common bridge. So it's a really interesting study that he did. Then there is Colette Poggi, who did Les œuvres de vie selon Maître Eckhart et Abhinavagupta. Now I'm telling you, Mr. Eckhart is not Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle is our contemporary. Mr. Eckhart was more in the 13th, 14th century. He's a German mystic. He's amazing. And Also, Abhinava Gupta, who is from Kashmir. So he's also a mystic from medieval times, but more the 10th and 11th century. So she took two figures that are really strong and she put some bridges in between their writings. So very good study. Then Bettina Sharada Balmer and John R. Dupush did a collection of different conferences called Void and Fullness in the Buddhist, Hindu, and Christian traditions. Shunya, which means void, and Purna, which means fullness, and Pleroma, which is a synonymous of fullness as well. So you can see here, there are three different traditions, three different religions that are put with bridges here through thematics that are coming often in the writings of the mystics. And I happen to have chosen a void amongst the themes in the exhibition. So it's not for nothing that I chose to talk about this subject, of course. And then I have also, during my research, used a lot, Les femmes mystiques, Histoire et Dictionnaire. It's a dictionary by Audrey Fella, and it's a very important pioneer work that regroups all the different women, mystical women. And so it's a really helped me to choose several well-known mystic women from different traditions for the exhibition. And so amongst the exhibition, I have chosen a few mystical women that are from our era, so that are our contemporary, and Sharika Devi, which you find here, the photo, is one of the example of that. I didn't want people to think that mystic is disincarnated and that it's not part of our time. I wanted people who visited the exhibition to have the feel that they could be, with someone that is a mystic, or that their neighbor is a mystic and they don't even know about it. That's what the feel I wanted them to give, that it's accessible. So the themes that are in the exhibitions are death, abyss, union, love, and intoxication. We will see now the different themes together. So let's continue. So death or renewal can seem a little dark to start an exhibition, but the truth is it's more a symbol of the fact of you are starting your quest. You are saying goodbye to the old and you are starting anew. That's the idea here. So that's the reason for renewal in the title next to death. But death is also very important in the life of many mystics who have lost their near ones. So this is, one very important symbol for a mystical woman. And then Mary Magdalene, she's the icon of the mystical woman. So I could not include her, in this exhibition. I spoke about the skull that is there. So in the death section, it makes much sense to put this image of her. It's an artwork that is part of the Musée National des Beaux-Arts du Québec. So in this museum, all the artworks that I've chosen in the exhibition are part of Canadian Museum. I wanted to give this local touch to the exhibition. Then there is Catherine of Siena, who's a patron saint of Italy. She's a doctor of the church, so she has many writings from which I could choose, which was really practical for choosing a quote in the exhibition. She's also a Dominican tertiary. And if you look at the artwork that I've chosen from Antoine Plamondon, a great artist from Quebec, there is a skull here. Also, though, again, a memento mori, and there is also a beautiful flower bouquet, and you can see that the flowers are losing their petal. So that's a representation of time passing by. It's really current in still lifes, but it's also easy to represent and through death. And here she's representing in stigmatization. So she received stigmate from the Christ, and so death also is really present through that thematic. And she was also a great fervent devotee of the precious blood of the Christ. So for all these reasons, I found that Christianism felt right in this section. Then there is the abyss section. Well, this one is definitely the most abstract in the exhibition. There is two possibilities here, voluntary and spontaneous. So because it's a bit abstract, I will spend a little bit more time explaining it and why I chose it. So void is not something that happens currently in our daily lives. It's more something that we can have a conception of, but it also can be more easily thought about if we put ourselves in the position of deep sleep. You know, when we are really, we are sleeping deeply, we are not conscious of our body, we're not conscious of our mind, we're not conscious of anything actually, we're pretty unconscious there. But if we were conscious and we weren't, you know, in the possibility to grasp the body or anything around us, it would be void, it would be complete darkness and infinity there. And so if you imagine yourself being in that position, it's something that happens to mystics when they are, for instance, doing prayer. They fall into this kind of abyss, void. And what happens is a little bit like the child in the sky, you know, that is in wonder. There is fear because it's a new experience. You're not accustomed to it. You feel that you will disappear. You feel like you will be, you know, you will die. So you don't want that. Obviously, you want to grasp back to the reality, and that's the first thing that will come to you probably. So this is what happened to those mystics. They're fearing a bit this experience at first, and then it comes again and again and again in their practice. So they have to become accustomed to it, and even with time, they become at ease with this sense of infinite void, and they feel a vibration there starting to throb and pulsate. So it's starting to feel good in a strange way. So this is the spontaneous one. You know, the spontaneous abyss will come again and again in the practice. It won't be provoked by anything. It will just happen. And then they will start being really at ease with it. Voluntary is provoked. So it is when you are meditating, for instance, and then you say, I want to make void, I want to make void. There's a lot of stress possibly involved there. But if you start doing a void, you can, you know, attention always has to be released at some point. So when it does release, you start being in a voluntary void, which can lead to possibly a spontaneous void, but can also cause trouble in the practice if you're not aware. And then in this section of the abyss, I have chosen a few Tibetan mystics because I found that, you know, we hear a lot about void in Buddhism, and it's always the general conception of nihilism, which is, oh, we think that we don't exist anymore and there is just void. But the true way of Yeshit Chogyal explaining the void is not like that at all. It's more that the person is absolutely there and conscious, and there is this impression of void. So how she talks about it, she's a master from, you will see her dates here, from Tibet Buddhism. And so she says in her text, I do not hope for liberation, and of the pains of hell, I have no fear. Far from the nihilism of non-believers, such is the calm assurance of profound dharmata. Now, if I explain what dharmata is the ultimate nature of phenomena, or one's own nature, if you will. So it's the experience of consciousness. And liberation is just that the person has no more restriction whatsoever. It is in a spontaneous experience of mysticism. So that's what is revealed here. She says that she has no hope, no expectation of the experience of mysticism. She is not in any fear. She is fearless. And she's not in nihilism. Also, she's not neglecting her own being. She's saying, I'm there. And such is the calm assurance. She is absolutely confident in her experience of profound dharmata or consciousness. If we carry on, Marie-Hélène is considered to be the reincarnation of Yeshit Chogyal. So in a way, so she's also Yogini master from Tibetan Buddhism. So if Yeshit Chogyal, she was one of the first to receive Buddhism in Tibet, Marie-Hélène was one of the first to start the Cha doctrine in Tibet. So she had last instruction in her life, and this is part of it. She says, as in the sky, all clouds disappear into sky itself. Wherever they go nowhere. Wherever they are nowhere. This is the same for thoughts in the mind. When mind looks at mind, the waves of conceptual thought disappear. You could hardly have more clear explanation of the thoughtless, you know, of the appease thought. It's really like the sky, those really fleeting and small clouds, those white clouds that dissolves in the sky. In the same way, if you have vigilance and you're aware, those thoughts will disappear as well if you're attentionless and just be there. So she has a beautiful metaphor here that she used to explain this absence of thoughts. Then there is Irina Tweedy, that is one of the contemporary women that I have chosen. She's a Sufi also from England. I have chosen to put her in the void section because the quotes that I've chosen from her journal, which is beautiful. She really has a lot of struggle she goes through. She explained a lot of the beautiful, deep experience that she feels. And so it talks about annihilation of the ego, so the false identification of pride. And so this is part of the quotes that I have chosen, which she mentioned amongst other, this annihilation here. So, and I would like to invite you to look at the eyes of those women because they're quite intense. They're absolutely there, focused. It's one thing that you can find in common in those contemporary women that I've chosen. Now the union section. The union section is the core of the exhibition. It's the most important part for me because it's really part of the definition of mysticism itself. And so we will describe it a little bit later. It's really about fullness. So one thing I didn't mention, but is important, is that all these different thematics are not gradual, chronological at all. They're just experience that one can have throughout the journey, and it's different for every mystical person. So it's not one step by step. We should not see that as that, but we should see it as different themes that are coming often in their writings. All right, so if we go to the first one I've chosen in this section is Laila. Laila is a Hindu poetess in Kashmir. And as you may notice, this is not a representation of Laila that I have chosen here. It is a representation of one of the Hindustani mode in the music in India. It's called Asavari Yogini, Ragini, sorry. So it's a raga. And she is represented as a person. This raga is personified by this woman that is in the wilderness. She is half naked, and she's her body is filled with snakes that's coiling her different members. If you look, she's really a way of the civilization that is represented in the back here. And that's really close to the life of Laila. Laila, she was singing praise to the Lord, and she was naked. And it was during medieval times. And so I wanted something to feel like Laila because I had not the possibility of having her own representation per se. In certain cultures, it was harder in the museum collections in Canada to have representation of the woman exactly. Sometimes just finding a representation of a woman in certain culture was harder. So it was for that reason that I chose artworks that were representing the culture and the spirit of the woman. The next one in this section is Teresa of Avila. She's really famous. She has done many writings. So she's one of the doctor of the church, patron saint of Spain, a Carmelite nun and founder and reformer of Carmel. So I have chosen in the artworks that are part of this exhibition a beautiful devotional image that has the representation of the arrow when it's piercing our heart. It's one of the most famous themes in art history, where she's represented in ecstasy with an angel having this little arrow in his hand. So this is one of the works here. And I have also chosen another original artworks that is part of the collection of the Musée des Cultures du Monde to represent her, this beautiful wooden sculpture that is also from Spain. So this is really an interesting representation. And now in the mystical woman I've chosen for union, I have Lillian Silburn. Lillian Silburn is a great scholar. So, and you can see she had good sense of humor. She has a little smile here, a funny smile. She was really funny. And she was an Indianist philosopher, which can explain her clothing. She was also a Sanskritist and from France. So I have chosen an extract from her, a letter she wrote to her brother about her own experience. So if you see here, as soon as the flow, now I included this just to understand better the context. So as soon as the flow of projecting ourselves into the future towards unceasing desires stops, when this flow stops, we experience an extraordinary peace, and once in a while, always, a bliss that is ordinarily never felt, as if we were sinking into a very soft cotton wool. Again, there is a variety of different states: sweetness, vibration producing a nearly physical pleasure, bliss of the soul itself, annihilation, which is only peace. When again we bathe in this sweetness, we know that this is reality itself. I think that it's really evocative of the different experience you could have when being in this state. So she talks about vibrations, which I evoked earlier, pleasure, annihilation. Do you see those themes are again and again? Sometimes it was even hard to decide if I would put this mystical woman in that section or in that one, because they were come so often. I would have to do, a little englobing of, okay, this is more, the fullness is what is coming out more from this quote. So I'll choose to put Lillian Silburn in Union. It's just an example. And then I have chosen a mystical woman from Canada. She's from the Northwest Territory and also a contemporary. Her name is Kaguna. She's a shamanist of Inuvialuit origin, so from the north of Canada. And she's the great-grandmother of the Abraham Engik Rubin, the artist, who's really famous Canadian artist. So he is more of a sculptor, but also do beautiful drawings. And I have asked of him, because I'm very exigent sometimes, I want things being done. I asked him, it's just a joke. I asked him to do a drawing of his great-grandmother, because he has narrated to me a story that his mother told him about his great-grandmother. So his great-grandmother was named Kaguna, and his mother also was called Kaguna, and she was an apprentice shamaness. So when she was 4 years old, she said to her son, her grandmother grabbed her hand and she brought her into the sky, and she saw the bounty of nature, all the animals before the colonization, when Inuits were living, their way of life. And there was so many beautiful animals and migration in the sky, so many different birds and so many animals in the land. She felt at one with the environment, with nature. She felt the whole harmony of nature. So this is a beautiful visualization that she experienced in just a fleeting moment. Because of this description of, this harmonious feel, oneness, that's the reason why I included her into Union. Then love. This section, I think, will not need much explanation as it's more a part of her day-to-day life. And then I have chosen to put the relation of different women, those who talk about the Lord, the divine, as being their beloved, or those who talk about the divine or the absolute as being their friend, or being the mother of the absolute. So all these different relationships, that is not a division in the person feeling the absolute, it's just a way of expressing it. And I have chosen Clara of Assisi, amongst others, a saint and founder of Order of Poor Ladies, or Poor Clares in Italy, because she talks about the divine with a very feverish love, very intense love experience. So I have here a beautiful small plaster sculpture painted. And so you can see she's having the monstrance in her hand, which is one of her attributes related to one of the miracles that is represented in this devotional image that is also part of the exhibition, where all the soldiers that came to invade Assisi were fleeing from the convent because of St. Clary's influence. And there was here the flag of their capitulation at her feet, which is really dramatic, but it shows one of the example of her life, a moment of her life. And then Mirabai is also part of the love section. She's a Hindu poetess in India. So like Laila, who was a Kashmir saint, she's singing her praise to the Lord. So she is really devoted to one representation of the Lord in Hinduism, that is Krishna. Krishna has a blue skin, and so I have chosen, once again, not a representation of Mirabai per se, but of Meghrag. And so Meghrag is related to the monsoon season. So Krishna with the dark blue is like the clouds of this moment in India. And here you have the gopis, which are the maidens who are in love with Krishna, and they are all having beautiful instruments in their hands. And I thought the devotion here represented by those women, and also the fact that Laila was singing her praise in a very suave way was perfect to represent her. Now, Eti Ilissem. In the French version of the conference, I went too fast on that slide and I missed Eti Ilissem that I talked about at the end. Now I won't make that mistake again. So Eti Ilissem is a figure I adore. She's a Jewish spiritual figure and author of a journal. She's from Netherlands. You can see by the date, I will not tell you, she's a Jew woman. And so she died in Auschwitz camp during the Second World War. She had a very, very fast quest. A bit like Irina Tweedy, it was fast. For Eti Ilissem, even faster needed, because she would die not long after that. And she felt it, she knew it. So that really prompted her to be very intense in her interiorization. And she also, like Irina, had a journal. And she's written, for instance, that I can feel such great love. My inner state is blossoming forth in all directions. My love grows ever stronger and greater. I am learning to bear it better and better and no longer feel crushed by it, that I can love so much. It's really impressive when you think of the context in which she wrote those pages. So the love section, of course. And then intoxication or ecstasy is not the final point, it's not the culmination of mysticism. It's just one of the facets of it. So ecstasy, why I chose intoxication, there is for sure a lot of metaphors that have been done by the mystics over the years about the fact that when you're in ecstasy, you lose a bit the ground of what's going on around you. You're a little bit tipsy, you're a little bit like if you are drunk. But it's not a promotion of abuse of alcohol here, for sure. It's really just a metaphor that is often used. So I decided to include it in the exhibition. And this is when the energy is so intense, the vibration is so strong, people tend to have to go back to reality, to grasp it again by using this energy to sing or dance or create a poem. So that's what will happen in those moments of intensity. Rabia al-Adwiya is one of the Sufi beautiful mystic from Iraq. She was even before Rumi or Hafiz, who are great Sufi poets. She was really a first. And she spoke with feverish love also about the absolute. And here the image I've chosen, it's a beautiful single page drawing. It's simply a seated lady, because I had a hard time just finding ladies, in this representation. I have chosen one lady in contemplation from the Aga Khan Museum, and it's a really beautiful, beautiful work. And here is an example of what she will say. in her poetry. So she says, "O physician of the heart, thee who are all I desire, unite me," now I will underline unite me, "to thee in a bound that heals my soul, all my joy, all my life forever. In thee my origin, in thee my intoxication. I have abandoned all creatures in the hope that to bind me to thee, for this is my ultimate desire." Isn't this feverish? It's really intense. And it has some of the themes again that we find in the exhibition. Once you know those themes, you cannot pass by them. You will have to see them everywhere. You'll read them. And in all the different cultures, they are there. If it's a mystic, you're sure to find it. Chioni also is a beautiful mystic. She's a Buddhist nun. She's also a poetess and a painter. How beautiful for the exhibition. And she's from Japan. She has written very short poetic texts that are called haiku. And those haiku I've chosen are really related to this intoxication and contemplation mainly. Again, this artwork that I've chosen from the Royal Ontario Museum is not a representation of her per se, but it's a Buddhist nun here that is at the bamboo grove. The bamboo grove is coming often as a theme in her IQ, as well as the contemplation of the moon and the contemplation of one's own reflection in the lake, which is really something that also is a metaphor that comes again and again in the mystics' writing. Now the last, but certainly not the least, Sharika Devi. She is also one of our contemporary, and she's a yogini from Kashmir. You can see the intense gaze in her eyes. She has done a poem that is called Nothing But All-Pervading Bliss. You can see why I put her in the intoxication section. It was really beautiful poetry, but what I love the most about it is also a great summary of all the different themes, because it really, it was not in the intention of her when she did this poetry, but it really is a great overall view of what is mysticism. And so it's part of the exhibition and it's also in the catalog. So I will go now to the points in common. And I know that we're running out of time, but we'll have a little bit of time for the question period. So I'll just go a bit faster for this section that are the points in common in the biographies. So there are trials that are crossed during youth. All these different women had different hardship that they had to go through. And it's really something that's coming often. Now, another thing is meeting with a guide. As you need to meet somebody who knows how to, do mathematics, or a musician to teach you how to play guitar, the same with the person who has to go through a process for mysticism. You have to know good mystic that is really in the experience if you want to feel something. So this is the same process. Systematic practice or ascesis is also very, very often in the person will be really disciplined and will do prayer or meditation or contemplation. It's just a few examples, but it's really coming often. And then the person gets maturity, acquires a spontaneous experience that is really throughout her life, and experience the urge, the need to share what they have received. So this is one thing that they all have in common. So if we go fast, we will see that the types of difficulty that a few of them have gone through is, for instance, death of more or of one or more relatives. They all in this section have experienced death. For instance, Irina Twitty is her husband, Liliane Sidburn, her father, Chiani, she lost both her parents and her husband, Machiklat Brun, her mother, who taught her to learn to study the scriptures. Teresa, Havila, and Rabia, like everybody lost somebody. Then it's a really intense sadness. And abuse also is a cause of trials. So families and in-laws or strangers could be cause of those kinds of hardship. Catherine of Siena, her parents were not really happy when she wanted to take the veil and they were hard on her. Same for Clara of Assisi with her father. He was really violent. Yeshit Shogal also, she was abused by strangers. Mirabai and Laila were abused by their in-laws. So it's coming often. Precarious health or depression. Teresa of Avila had a precarious health all her life, and she needed to deal with it, and she interiorized more and more. And Etty listened even before having to struggle during Second World War. She struggled with depression. So this is one thing that's coming. The 13 out of 15 now. It's not a scientific thing at all, but it's just, I wanted to show that it's really common. And the two others that are not included in there, it doesn't mean that they are not, you know, they didn't go through trials. It's just sometimes their biographies has not given me enough keys to know which trials they went through. So I couldn't include them in there, but they probably have. And then slavery or prostitution is also something that was coming. So Rabia Ladouia was slave and prostitute, so her legend said, and Mary Magdalene as well. So this is a few points in common. Now, meeting with a guide, again, the 12 out of 15 doesn't mean that they all went through it, but the fact is those that were mentioned, there were 12 that I could say with more certainty. And I have to say now, the question have been asked previously to me, is this exhibition wanted to convert somebody with something? Not at all. It needs to be very clear. It's no interest of converting anybody. The only point here is to show that when a mystical woman is in one path and she is more inclined towards this culture because she was born in this culture, for instance, she will stick to it and she will be very strong in her determination. And that's why she will have success through her quest, because she will have a great vigilance and awareness. So whichever path one chooses, the most important thing is to stick with it and to be really strongly involved in one's own transformation through that process. So if you look at those different teachers, or if you will, guide that were in lives of those mystics, most of the time it's only one that's involved, but sometimes you would have exception like Maciek Ladron, which means often, you know, in one's life, you could have a literature teacher who would have a good influence on you. It's part of the guides in your life, but there is also always one that is more prevalent. So for her, Dampa Shangyé was the one. He was a wandering monk, holder of the Cha doctrine. And if you look at Sonam Lama, one of her other teachers, he was a disciple of that same Dampa Shangyé. So you can see that it was really this one that was the most prevalent in her own process. And Lama Trapa was one of the monks who taught her scriptures, holy scriptures. So he had a good influence, but it was not the main one. And then if we go to the systematic practice or ascesis, I have regrouped a few mystical women in different fields. Doesn't mean that, say, for instance, Yeshe Chogyal didn't practice all of these, but it's just that some were more prevalent in different quests. So for instance, prayer or mantra is something that's coming often. So mantra is a sacred formula. And then meditation is often a more, you know, the women from Orient, which were more in Buddhism or in the, you know, Buddhism, Hinduism. And then contemplation and visualization. I have put Kaguna in visualization here. It's really relevant. And many of these mystics went through these sacred study of sacred books. For sure, Maciek Ladron was one who was really much involved in the study of the sacred books, but many of them were, it was really a common point. And austerities can be intense or it can be slight, you know, like a day of silence is an austerity. A day of not taking one meal for dinner is an austerity. Sometimes they went through very hard austerities, but not all the time. It would vary. And then there is also the rituals, which is more external, like offering a flower to a deity. For Mirabai, you know, who was singing her love for Krishna, this is one of the practice you would have. And then mandala for Yeshe Chogyal and Maciek Ladron, for sure. Oh, sorry, going too fast for the last one. And maturity and sharing. So 15 out of 15 were sharing their experience through different ways, whether it would be teaching, speeches, answering questions simply, writing books, So there would be really different ways. Many has written their books, and so that's why I could choose quotes from their different writings. And then intangible heritage, it would be really relevant to say about Mirabai and Laila, they left a intangible heritage because they were singing their poetry. Same for Sharika Devi, and her sister Prabha Devi would note every moment, every word, not to lose anything about what was going on. And Kaguna, who is a shaman from Inuit origin, well, of course, there was no writing, but she really certainly had a tradition, an oral tradition there. And foundation of communities, monasteries, or a doctrine is also much part of this process. Maciek Ladbron founded many, Teresa of Avila also. So it's just a few examples. Now, to conclude with this section, there is a great project I want to mention very briefly called Medit Aging Project. It's done by the European Commission. It was started in 2016 and just ended in March of this year. And it was coordinated by the l'Institut National de la Santé et de la Recherche Médicale in France. And there's a link here if you want to click and have access to it. It's very interesting. It has published now a few articles. It's more scientific, but it really shows the effect of meditation on reducing Alzheimer as you're growing in age. So I really look forward to reading those articles to know more about what are the effects. Now, I'd like to say simply to conclude this part of the presentation by saying that I would like to thank deeply everyone, all the museum who allowed me to share those photos in the exhibition. I'd like to thank also all those who allowed me to share the quotes, the long quotes in the exhibition and in the catalog. And I would like to thank also all those who are either near ones or specialists in one domain to proofread my text for the catalog, because I'm not the expert of all these cultures, It would be hard to be the expert of all these cultures, but there were great people who helped me to be sure that all the information was the most right as possible. And so I'd like to thank them all. And of course, the Musée des Cultures du Monde, all the team, and also the Sanctuaire, the Notre-Dame-du-Cap, for receiving this exhibition. And I hope it's not the last institution to receive the exhibit as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marie-Hélène, for this conference. For those interested in purchasing the exhibition catalog published by the Edition Guide, there is different options available for local purchase. Mostly in Canada, you may buy it at our museum store online. I will add the web link in the chat in 1 minute. For international purchase, it's also available at Renové. I will also add the link at the conference chat. We are now at the question period. I will read the question in the chat and ask them to Marie-Hélène. So if you have any question, just write it in the chat.
Dominique, you had one that was ready for me?
Yes, of course. I will ask if, with my first personal one, I would like to know where is your interest in the mystic and the woman, in the mystical woman, where is it coming from? Where have you started to learn about all this theory and all this knowledge?
Well, the fact is, all the struggles that I talked about earlier, I had some also in my childhood, very hard times. So for me, it was very important to know what's the goal of life, basically. And so that's the interest in mysticism. And why those women? Because I've had a lot of chance to read about mystical men, but there was not so much literature available about mystical women when I was younger, and I was really curious to know more. So it was a good opportunity for me to make some research, and also I wanted it to be better known by people in a more general way. So that's why I chose this thematic.
Perfect. We have not a suggestion, but a commentary. about someone being surprised that you put the sacred book for Mars Tweety.
Maybe Irina Tweedy that was meant here.
Yeah.
So Mrs. Tweedy, she would read about John. She would read a lot of things. That's what I've read in her journal. So for me, it was part of, and she had a really good culture, this woman. So from what I have read, I certainly have put this, because if it was not at the moment when she met her own master, it certainly was part of her life. She did study a lot, and she had a really good general culture.
Perfect. Is there any other question in the public? Feel free to ask your question.
Oh, I see that there is. Please do consider an European exhibition. I sure would. This would be amazing. I have not found any place yet, but if you do suggestions, we are certainly open.
Is it the consciously dream as a mystical practice?
You mean become conscious when you're sleeping?
Yeah. Sorry for
Oh,
my English.
no, that's really good. Okay, so one thing is interesting is that when you are becoming more conscious on a day-to-day life, on everyday life, it's like when you are meditating, for instance. You have the morning when you are sitting and you are becoming internalized. You will have the tendency of being very aware of what's going on in your mind, of trying to appease your thoughts. These moments of intense presence will become more and more, present in your day. So you will be walking and you'll become there. This will be the same with your dreaming state. When you will be dreaming, you could be dreaming that something horrible is happening to you. I once dreamt of a woman coming and strangle me, which was not really fun. But I kind of become aware in my dream that it was not true. I was not being strangled. So I started not being afraid of this moment anymore, and I woke up soon after. But when you become more and more aware in your dreams, the good point also is that when intense emotions coming over you, like anger, you will be more self-aware. So you will not indulge in easy reactions anymore. It will not be possible to you. And it is said also that when you become more and more aware in your dream state, it's also becoming more and more aware in your deep sleep, which is really intense. It can be a bit strange also becoming aware in your deep sleep, because you're like, what's going on, But it's part of the experience that certainly can happen when doing this kind of process.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We got a question from Leslie, but she would like to use our microphone. Is this possible to unmute her?
So Leslie, I will ask you to unmute yourself. So I just did. You should be able to speak.
Thank you very much. Do you have book suggestions of the poets, women mystic poets?
Yes, certainly. Actually, in the catalog, I put all the different reference that I have used. So I would certainly recommend all those books that I've used to create those quotes. So if I go in the catalog, there is a section that is like a selective biography that you can, I don't know if you see well, but it's one thing that you certainly can do. You can go and you can look, okay, this quote for, say, I would just say Etty Lissem as an example, was taken from her journal that was published that year. So for sure, I would recommend the journal of Irina Tweedy, if you've not read it, of Lillian Silburn there's a really recent publication that was done. Sharika Devi, there's a beautiful book. All those quotes come from different books. So with the catalog, it helps to see all the different possible readings. That's the reason why I put that also. Of course, you need to put your reference, but that's also the goal, is to help for those who want to continue reading about the subject. Thank you for the question.
For your information, also, there is a question about, will this video be available online? The video will be available on YouTube, on the museum page, YouTube page. And I also think the sanctuary will have also his own YouTube page, and they will add it. So you will be able to earn it. And we have also the French version presently online.
Sure. I think we're going to the end of the conference, aren't we?
So thank you very much, everybody, for your listening and your participation to the conference. And I will also love to give a huge thank you to Marie-Hélène Naud for our time and also her dedication and her passion about the mystical woman, and also all the time she worked on it. So thank you very much, Marie-Hélène Naud, for this conference and for the exhibition.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Again, thank you to the museum, the sanctuary, and thank you everyone. You were amazing. I really am happy to see people coming from England and from Canada and the States. It's great. Thank you so much, and have a good evening or morning or noon. Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day, everyone.